Good evening, welcome to All About Auckland. I'm Kane Glass. This week we're at Te Puru Recreation Centre in Beachlands. Facilities like these all over Auckland are feeling the cold wind of parks budget cuts to accommodate Auckland's infrastructure costs. On Tuesday, the governing body convened for an extraordinary meeting to discuss the City Rail link for the 7th time. The Mayor and the councillors on the far left want to keep pressure on the government by moving the start date forward as far as possible. Mangakiki councillor Denise Crum led the charge from the right with an amendment to counter the Mayor. Denise argues against the City Rail link by moving that the budgeted start date be set at 2020, in line with government's present commitment. Her move set the scene for a very interesting debate.
So I think that the most recent, accurate and reliable information that Council has on the start date, and this is factual, for government contributions, is the statement from the Minister of Transport himself last Friday, in which he confirmed that the government quite clearly will not be adopting an earlier start date than 2020. And that's unless, of course, CBD employment and rail patronage targets are satisfied. Now, whether you agree with the targets or not, it's irrelevant for the purposes of preparing our financial accounts. What is relevant is that we've got an independent PwC study from April this year stating that the targets are unlikely to be met, and a letter from the Prime Minister in July which states quite categorically that the government did not agree with the Mayor's proposal for the targets to be amended. So the amendment that I'm putting forward today seeks to restore a bit of sense back into our, and Penny Webster's, Councillor Webster's referred to it, the wider LTP process. We can't lose sight of that. Council's reputation in the community as a fiscally prudent project manager has taken a sizable hit with recent events. The significance of having the Auditor General refuse to sign off on the draft LTP budget cannot be understated, and yet the Mayor's proposing to repeat the same mistake again by incorporating financial assumptions that we have to admit by nature aren't and can't be accurate and therefore could be construed as misleading. By supporting a forecasting assumption of government funding commencing in 2018-19, we're being asked to effectively again disregard the concerns of the Auditor General. So the amendment that you have before you today allows Council to proceed with the essential enabling works and strategic land acquisitions over the next 3 years in conjunction with the redevelopment of the downtown shopping centre precinct.
The discussions thus far have been not specifically with me and the Auditor General. The Auditor General's office has been in discussions with our organisation, as would be the way. This is an administrational issue where the Auditor General has been working in beside those in my office, Teresa in particular, as you'll be aware, Stephen as the Acting Chief Financial Officer, and Matthew as the officer dealing with the LTP program. The Auditor General, until such time as decisions has been made, will not give any commitments or otherwise, or give a lead. It's a fairly interesting sort of relationship. The Auditor General has to, in effect, sign off the LTP for all local government organisations, but will not sign it off until such time as a decision has been made. And it says in the Auckland plan this is our #1 project, and we're about delivering it with pace and momentum. And I'm not really arguing this project from the government's end. I want to get around the table with them. And I want us to conclude it, but I'm arguing this from Aucklanders' viewpoint. And I reckon that's an unbeatable position, quite frankly, and they want it. And we've argued this 7 times through 2 elections. And it's not asking much. With the auditor now saying, okay, give us something a bit more conservative, but we don't want to constrain your ability to sit around the table and negotiate with the government. And I don't think this does it. I accept the auditor's concerns. We're responding to them. Of course we should. And as Stephen has said, this is not unusual in the broad expanse of things. The fact that it's the CRL makes it unusual because we spend so much time debating it instead of delivering it.
We're attempting to deliver for the Auditor General an explicit rationale for our adoption of option 2 and the assumptions that go with that. So we're assuming government funding being available in 2018-19. That happens to be year 4 of the 2015 LTP. More importantly is year 1 of the next LTP. So it creates an opportunity for the governing body to revise its 2018 LTP in 2017 in light of the position that we reach with government. We're clearly in option 2, separating the enabling works from the main contract works so that you can see that the enabling works, the essential route protection in the northern section of the city centre from Britomart to Wyndham Street, that would proceed. It's supported by the council's balance sheet, and then we envisage the main contract for construction commencing in 2018-19 and being operational by 2023. What happens to the total project cost in this scenario is that we add 97 million for inflation because we're starting a bit later, and our group debt at the end of 10 years is consequently slightly higher than the earlier start date. More importantly, our interest to revenue ratio at no time exceeds 12%. Incredibly importantly, this option doesn't have any different impacts on rate increases. We need to look at the financial materiality of the different assumptions, so moving from where we were to option 2. So obviously, as I've said, option 2 assumes a 2018-19 start. Later government funding is modelled. It's included as another option to give great clarity to our consultation document. We're essentially looking now with option 2 compared to the slower alternative that's still out there, that it's an 18 to 24 month timing difference. It has no meaningful impact once it is built, capitalised, and we start to service it. So we carry 416 million of debt for the 18 to 24 month period, which represents a very small percentage of our debt portfolio, and it has no immediate ratepayer impact because we capitalise and then repay as government contributions flow. Critically, again, the LTP can be amended in 2017 for 2018, which is the same approach that you took in 2011 when you were developing the 2012 LTP. CRL targets. This has been a feature of some conversation in the last few days. The government set 2 targets to release funding for 2020, 20 million rail trips a year by 2020, and a 25% increase in city centre employment over 2012 levels. And to keep us, are we on track? So rail patronage is tracking to meet that target, and the electric multiple units, the new electric trains, are lifting patronage at a faster rate than before they started running on the network, and that's been very pleasing for everyone. And the city centre employment needs, that target means we needed to be at 5.2% increase per annum, currently tracking at 4.5%. So we have a marginal difference which we would clearly be talking to government about in the period between now and 2017.
This target of, 5.2% or the like, is that possible?
Well, Councillor Wayne...
done some work on that?
Yeah, absolutely we have, and the PricewaterhouseCoopers report, which carried out an independent assessment of those 2 targets, confirmed that we should be able to achieve the transport target. but that secondly, the chances of being able to achieve a target set by the government, never finally agreed by us, but a target set by the government, it may be very, very difficult for us to ever achieve that employment target, or depend on how many jobs will be generated by the amount of building that we're now seeing happening downtown.
I think the government's target for patronage is reasonable, but it will require work, and it's not just going to glide up there automatically. I believe that the major disruption to rail patronage growth in 2012-13 was caused by steep fare increases, and so these projections are hostage to, amongst other things, fare increases. There is a market out there that responds to price changes, bear that in mind. The second thing, it relates to employment growth. The government's target here, unlike the patronage growth target, is deeply flawed, because the employment growth that the CBD can support is based on the CRL. If you're going to have that amount of massive employment growth before the CRL, it kind of raises the question whether you actually need a CRL. We need a CRL to boost that level of employment growth. So
it says here that our interest to revenue ratio does not exceed 12% in option 2. However, what I'd like to know is if we've got to carry over $416 million debt for 18 to 24 months with no partnership funding, okay, it says it doesn't impact the rates, but which of the $418 million capital projects that we might have in the 18-19 long-term plan do we defer because we have used up that borrowing capacity? Who else do we have to let down? What other projects do we defer? That's what's not in here, and that's the reality. Because we say, oh, it's not going to impact on rates. No, but it'll definitely impact on our ability to do anything else in the region, notwithstanding that this is a critical project. So I want the truth about that. Thank you.
All right, so let's talk about the first issue of 218 as against 220. It's a great negotiating position to go to the government and tell them, we agree with your position. We'll put that in the LTP. That is a great negotiating position. Why would you change? Right? I mean, that has been my primary beef with this process thus far. We are in a negotiation, discussion, consideration, and yet we are required completely to disclose what our position is. And so the reason why I think 2018 is a reasonable position, and why I've asked the Chief Exec to give you the benefit of his clear and direct discussions with the Audit Office and with my office, is because I needed a similar level of comfort to you, but we cannot get a guarantee. I understand that. One of the things that for me in my role was that the change that came in 2013 June, when the government in the end, through the Prime Minister, made a commitment to the CRL, it came off 12 to 18 months of hard discussion and negotiation.
This is big money that we're talking about here today, and the downside is that other things in this city are going to go from bad to worse.
That's right.
And that was the situation. Auckland Transport tell us that roads are going to go from poor to very poor.
The CRL is a game changer, not the only game changer, but it's a big player in town at this point in time. We need this project. We need to be alongside the government and having collaborative and informed discussions with them. They need to understand our positioning, and we need to understand theirs. I've said it before in this chamber, this is New Zealand. We are not a massively huge nation. We can get along with each other if we do it in a sensible and mature fashion. And that's what we need to do as a council and as a country. You know, the future is about planning for the growth and getting our systems in place ready for it. It's not about playing catch-up. We've done enough of that. We need to look above the parapets and look forward and plan for that next generation.
To beat the CRL drum, while at the same time not acknowledging that for the next 10, 15, 20 years now, at least, there are areas around that everything's just stopped, and that includes public transport. So, in my ward in particular, and I know there's other councillors who have exactly the same circumstance, there is no roading improvements. The Park and Ride, the great PT initiative, has halted in its tracks. Nothing more is going to happen with that. The bus service, which is, to be fair, is meant to be upgraded, has to go along a road that has reached its capacity 5 years ago. The notion that there was going to be some degree of fairness and some degree of investment elsewhere has gone, and I don't see anyone beating a rush down the path to address that. So I'm going to be very interested to see what comes back during the consultation period, because I suspect the support might not be quite as overwhelming as people perhaps think it is.
My view is that we need to maximise the pressure on the government, and this doesn't do that. I'm entirely uncomfortable with anything that mentions 50%, because as Mike has said, as others have said, fundamentally the government should be paying for the track, the tunnels, we pay for the stations. The government, at the stroke of a pen, could come to the table. They could do that tomorrow. They don't necessarily have to find more money. They could find money out of their existing budget and simply reprioritise the spend that they've got in Auckland, some of which is on projects that don't deliver around mobility. So if the government rejigged what it was doing, we would have the money for the CRL and we would have much better mobility in Auckland.
Where we've landed, which is saying we can live with 2018, we can go and work objectively and positively with government, and I acknowledge Councillor Cashmore's wise words around that. We can work in a constructive way to reach agreement around the CRL. How about we go and do that? And I think we are overthinking and over-debating the heart of the matter, which is essentially that. Let's go and talk to Wellington about how we make this happen in a way that is both respectful, trusting of the process and transparent for our ratepayers.
It's a shame this has degenerated to a degree into a them and us, meaning it's Wellington against Auckland, and it's and then we're relitigating public transport, buses, roads versus private cars. This is an issue that we're here today because the OAG have come back like they often do in these types of scenarios when you do your LTP. And I've just been working with the OAG in a different organisation outside council. It's a similar thing where they come back, they have some concerns, they ask you for your suggestions and amendments and scenarios, and then they usually meet people in the middle. I'm really worried that we don't muck up the early start to this project, which is seems to be the main issue, or certainly the main issue for me. I'm not too worried about the finish of it, because the difference between the government and us has always been about 18 months to 2 years, so the scenario is, hey, let's not muck up the start.
I think overall, Mr Chair, that we've been, as an organisation, we've been focused too much on desperately fast-tracking this project, more so than finding sustainable funding solutions. And I have to say that I believe, and I said it at the time, that it was reckless to put $854 million in the budget from 1 July next year for the next 3 years on the sole assumption that the Crown was going to come to the party on the 1st of July next year. And I'm pleased that the Auditor-General has pulled this organisation into line, because that was cloud cuckoo land and pie in the sky. Option one was saying that. Option one, which is that, $854 million,
based on the assumption of Crown putting in half from 1 July next year, needs to come off the table. It is irresponsible to put that out for consultation. I suspect it's going to be put out there to rally the troops, so that tick box gets a big percentage of support. But why do that when the Auditor General's office has clearly ruled that option out, and we could not do it? I think putting option 1 out there for the public is misleading and frankly mischievous.
People in my community, they're certainly not all out there saying that they're supporting the CRL starting early, and I think we're really trying to put all of our eggs in the one basket. We've got future needs that need to be addressed. We've got roads out in Beachlands and Pine Harbour and Rodney. We've got out in Beachlands, we've got more or less a country road that is going to take 10,000 people are going to have to use that country road to get to Howick or Woodford or whatever. We're not even thinking about the future needs of people living in those sort of communities. We're putting all of our eggs in one basket. You know, picking up on some of the other comments that some of the councillors have made, have we really done the homework? Have we found out all the people that work in the CBD? Are they going to actually use the rail? Have we really done that homework? I don't think we've done a lot of homework at all. I think there's been a little dream or big dream, and you know, I personally don't think the CRL is going to be the be-all for this Auckland region, and I'm not going to be supporting it.
Councillor Sharon, I'm going to send you the 10 volumes of work done on the CRL over the last 20 years, and then on top of that I'm going to send you Dubmeyer Robinson's work over the last 60 years, and I want you to do some homework. That's right.
And John Banks'
60 to 70 years of analysis is not a bad body of work to do a bit of homework on.
Yes, but we have grown and we've spread out, and there's a lot of areas that will never ever use that rail, and we have to remember them. We have to remember we have to put roads in for those people. We have to get them moving. We can't just have everything just on the CRL.
You're absolutely right.
Can't help but think this conversation was held in the 20s, was held in the 40s, was held in the 50s,
60s,
70s, and on, and Dubmeyer Robinson faced it, and the moderates beat him, and the moderates won again back in the 20s and the 90s, and I can't see that it was desperately fast-tracked then, and it's definitely not being desperately fast-tracked now, but one thing is for certain, there's a desperate need for this project. And I find myself around this table. I just hope that I don't sit around this table in 2 years or even 3 years, let alone others that follow us in 10 or 20 years, continuing a discussion that started it was first mooted in the 1920s. Remarkable. Yep. No fast tracking in that, folks. So look, but it is time now to shift gears. It's shifted up a notch. And that's not to fly in the face of government at all. It's just a signal that there is great urgency with this project.
I stood to make a difference, not just for my community, my ward, but the region as a whole, and to have him put into my ward and the region. And I don't really care if I'm not here next time round. It's not about a job. It's not about being popular. It's about making some decisions to grow the region. I can sure as hell make better money doing that than my previous life. Especially when I walked out the door yesterday at 5:45 yesterday morning, and I walked in the door at 11:15 last night. Calculate that by an hourly rate. I'm sure it's probably about $3 an hour. So it's not for the money. It's for the love. Sometimes I wonder about that.
There's a lot of wondering going on over there, Cal.
But you know, I'm not a public transport user, but I know there's a lot of people that want it. As long as it's reliable, it's fast, it's smooth, it's clean, and it can get people into town. And when I hear them ringing me up saying, it's all good, Callum, you want us to get on public transport, but we're going to sit outside bloody Britomart, excuse me, shouldn't have said that word. for 10 minutes or 7 minutes or 6 minutes. Sort it out.
Exactly.
Sort it out. As I said, I didn't stand for the dollars. I don't give a continental about the job. I can go off and do something else. And if they vote me out next time around, so be it. But I want to contribute over the next 3 years of my political time around this table. I don't want to be a naysayer, a person that says no to everything. I want to be able to deliver. The government, yes, I'll put my hand up. My choice of government. But they've got to step up, man. They've got to come to the party. Look at the growth in the south, look at the growth in the north. How many homes are we getting in the south over the next 7 to 15 years?
7%.
How many houses are going to be built? Every time I drive through Takanini, which is not often these days because I'm in here. And generally it's dark when I go back. I drove past here on Saturday and thought, my God, those 3 houses went there 2 weeks ago, I'm sure of it.
You're not in the dark, Helen.
You know, I think we've got to get with the real world. You know, we're out there pushing business development, land availability, business land. You know, how many people come into New Zealand this year? 50,000, I believe. 50,000. Where have those people gone to? The bulk of them have come to Auckland. The bulk of them have come to Auckland. Explains why our motorways are gridlocked. Where are they coming from Drury? They're coming from over the Bombay Hills. Why? Because they're coming for the work. Are they contributing to our roads? No, they're not. So people, I won't be supporting this today. We've got to get moving, and I'm damn sure the government will come on board. They're there now, but I'm damn sure they will. It'll be lovely to think they'll pay for 75%. It'd be even better if they paid 100%.
100%.
But I'm sure they'll be there. So I won't be voting for this.
I back them in what we're saying here. I really am. I wonder why the government isn't running full pace with us on this. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Has anybody calculated what the government's return just on the GST of people using rail into the future? I'd say there's quite a bit of dollars sitting in there that hasn't been calculated as of yet. Unknown dollars that they will get for the benefit of us opening up Auckland again.
So this amendment ticks all the boxes. Based on debate today, you'd think that we were putting up something to can the whole thing.
That's
it
right.
ticks the boxes. It backs the project. It proceeds with enabling works. It strives for an earlier start date. And we can all feel sure that if the business case stacks up, the government will come to the party earlier. It uses both the political and the executive mechanisms for negotiations on the way forward. And even for you, Councillor Wayne Walker, it strives for a little bit more than 50% from the government. So what's not to like about the sensible, common sense way forward here? And it's something that should be supported.
Thanks for watching the All About Auckland show. I hope you found the ideas interesting. To watch the show again or sign up for our newsletter, go to www.allaboutauckland.com. You can watch us on our YouTube channel, About AKL. You can follow us on Facebook or via our Twitter handle, All About AKL. Next week we visit the Unitary Plan Hearings panel for the submissions on urban growth. And we go to the last council meeting of the year.